Oh, hang on. I need to press that button. You'd think I'd know how to do this by now. I mean,
thank God we didn't let you fucking loose on our channel, mate. Jesus.
Oh, anyway, we'll edit this bit out, Russ. They'll never know.
Yeah, they'll never know.
Happened. They'll never know. We could just pretend it didn't happen and go, hello, welcome to the West Ham Massive. Thanks for joining us. Please don't forget, ladies and gentlemen.
You do look like them anyway, so maybe you get your flashlight out. You can get one.
Don't forget to like, comment on, and share this stream to your socials. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and hit the bell icon for alerts and new content. We thank you for your support. These things are all free to do. Take you a couple of seconds. We won't come along and kick your cat or crap through your letterbox or anything nasty like that. We've got a couple of extra faces. Well, at the minute, it's only one extra face, but there's another two that are off camera. So I'm going to let Adam introduce it. Oh, hang on. No, done it again. Press the wrong button. Here we go. Get yourself your introductions out the way, mate.
Yeah, so I'm Adam, and I'm the co-host for Dad's Ad Job podcast. And I'm joined in the studio. We've just finished our recording with Rob Horton and Callum Horton. Guys, hello.
Hello, guys. Thank you for having us on. Love the intro. Iron Maiden-esque. It was really good.
Thank you very much.
They're off screen for a reason because they're both sporting Arsenal shirts. So I don't want to deter the West Ham fan base right now. So
that's not really acceptable, but we'll let them carry on. Listen, if there's any of you guys that have watched the big debate over on the West Ham Network and you've decamped over here, thank you for coming over. Really do appreciate it. New and old people that have come along, as I say, it's really is appreciated. So if you have got any more questions that you want to put in that you maybe didn't get an opportunity to do the first time around, this is a little second bite of the cherry, so get them in. So we've already got one that's actually been submitted by let me just have a look here. Michael, welcome along. So I'll tell you what, since this is your first crack at this, boys, we'll send it over to the boys from Dad's Our Job podcast first. Michael asked the question, do you see more academy players playing club football in the future, or will they just become a book balance assets in light of profit and sustainability rules? So over to you, chaps.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing West Ham and even Arsenal want to become is another Chelsea, by unearthing this natural talent that comes and should be playing in the squad to only be a profiteering exercise. I can see more academy players coming in, but when you're looking at the quality that's being brought in, like, you know, we'd love to see George Murphy play, and we'd love to see Lewis Orford play, but when you've got players like Carlos Soler coming in and Guido Rodriguez and Alvarez that are putting them youngsters out of their position, I think it's more down to the amount of time that the head coach has. Obviously, they're only given a short amount of time to make things work for them to have a prolonged career at the club. So, do they take the risk of playing an academy player that's untested, or do they go by trusted professionals? It really is a tough balance to get these kids in. And I think one of the brightest hopefuls for us last year was seeing George Murphy come on to make his second appearance and scoring his first ever goal as a West Ham boy. For me, yeah, I'd love to see it happen, but I think it's going to be few and far between unless there was a very, very special talent like another Declan Rice coming through. I can't see it happening that much. Boys, what do you think from an outsider's point of view?
Yeah, I mean, so I saw a statistic today. Mikel Arteta just signed a new contract at Arsenal, which is great news for Arsenal fans. But the average statistic for a manager in the Premier League is 1 year and 3 months. So in terms of solutions, when they're trying to build their squads, they're often looking for fast track solutions, not something where they're going to have to bleed in and develop over time. They're looking for the results right now. And with players coming through the system, you'll always get the breakout players, but what we can get done right now, and even if you look at Arsenal, they're playing this weekend. You've got an Odegaard injury. There's a reason why players get let go. And so in our case, we've got this player coming through, Nwaneri. That's his opportunity. If he thinks he's good enough, he's old enough, and he should be played. But it's one of those things. It remains to be seen whether that's going to get done.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to raise, isn't it? It's the opportunity that's had as well. Like, Arsenal got Declan Rice suspended, Martin Odegaard injured. Who's going to be their midfield replacement? So that they'll have to look into their youth, because that's what they don't have a transfer window to get that person in. So they've got to dip in. So again, it's also down to opportunity.
Also, I think the law as well is going to bring that in. With what's happening with Man City, or potentially going to be happening with Man City, people are going to have to start relying on their youth team, because they ain't going to be able to spend the money. So I do think that you will get teams looking at a youth team, but also with the players that they've got in their team, like a Man City with Palmer, the players, or Foden, the players they've brought in are only going to breed and breed better players coming through.
Yeah, that's right. That's us finished. Done awful.
No problem. Sloth, what's your oh, hang on, press that button. Done it again. Sloth, what's your thoughts on Michael's question?
I think it's going to be a really, really interesting period. I mean, if you look at just the past window alone, Newcastle had to sell to Nottingham Forest a player, Eddie Howe, by all reports, really didn't want to leave and let go, but they had to for PSR reasons. And I think you may well see big clubs start to lose academy players that they just can't promise first team football to. I think it may well be something where it's either inserted with clauses, but they look at insert buyback amounts, things like that, to try and soften any blow, like a City losing a Palmer. But I look at the academy setup in the country, and even in the time that sort of I was younger and looking to try and get into football and play football, I knew people in the Crystal Palace Academy, and one of my good friends, he was in the same side as Zaha. And the way that the academies have grown since then, and we've caught up to the rest of, say, Europe in terms of the level that our academies are, it's night and day from what it was. So I think you will see more young players getting the chance, but only if the loan system in this country is utilised more. If clubs really look to utilise the loans, and Arsenal are a good example of how they've utilised their loans to get money for players like Reece Nelson, or who's the other one? The one who's gone to Fulham for about 30 million quid, and Smith Rowe, that's it. Thank you very much, gents. It's a case of, they've got good money for someone who's not really played that much, but needed loans. And it's now moving in a place where I think young players have to think of their career. And if they want to make it at the top, the chances of us getting another Mark Noble are probably as they're next to none. And players are going to have to start to look to go out on loans, make their own way, and think about what's best for them. Because as you guys mentioned, the recruitment these days is unforgiving, it's unrelenting. And if you have a stinker, then there's a good chance that someone's going to be in the boardroom going, we need to address this in the next window, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to bring someone in for however many million who's been playing a higher standard of football for more time. So I think we will look at youth assets as we maybe should do in the first place, which is as investments. And I don't mean that from a cynical point of view. I mean that from the point that your coaching staff, your academy has invested into that player, and they've spent time with them. They've spent time, whether it's on the training pitch, in the gym with them, everything. And you now need to look at what's best for them, but what's best for the club as well. And if you can get, say, an extra £5 million from a youngster who you aren't sure is going to get the minutes, then I think that's a win for both parties, because they're probably going to go and try and prove themselves at a club that values them. And you're also going to get money that's going to help you right off the books. So although it might be quite cynical, I think it's probably a positive in the long haul that we're starting to value academy players correctly.
Thank you, Sloth. Russ, what's you're obviously a massive advocate, as you said over on the network not so long ago. Huge advocate of academy players, but do you think they're just balance book assets, as Michael's put it?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think the way football is now, it's. I mean, there was a stat when we interviewed Callum McNaughton and Paul Brown for their book, and they said 97% of Premier League academy players never play a single minute of Premier League football. The standard of entry for a breakout academy star to make 50 appearances is so small now that actually you're getting the cream of the crop are rising now. So you are getting your Cole Palmers, your Fodens, your Declan Rices, hopefully a George Earthy. I mean, Ben Johnson was obviously 50 or almost probably 70, 80 appearances in all for West Ham. That's what we'll get. And I think the trouble is because, and that's a detriment of the Premier League as a whole. We had like Tim Breaker on, Pat Holland, Patsy. They're both. I mean, they're always. I mean, Patsy's always at Rush Green scouting for some club, whether it's Arsenal or someone like that, looking at our players, and they are seen as. I think it's almost seen as investments. West Ham have a few of our academies, like Xavier Parker and a couple of others. They've gone to Man City in the last 2-3 years. Jamal Baptiste went there, didn't work out, left. And you'll get more and more of those players getting bought up and almost put on the scrap heap. Lewis Brown, for example, Kenny's son, was at Arsenal for years until this year. He was they did offer him a new contract, so now he's at West Ham. And Tim made a great point to me once. He was saying, you can invest the time and stuff in getting players in and spending money, or you could go to France and get someone who's made 50, 60 appearances already, who's the same age. And as we said, the money is so per point, getting the money for winning and drawing games, that managers haven't got that opportunity to do that now. And that's where Europe was great for us. If we were in Europe, would we have given? Moyes gave, I think it was 20 first team appearances to academy players in terms of their debuts. Would have that happened if we had Europe? No, not with a shadow of a doubt. No, sirree, Bob. And so for me, they're seen as Sloth said, almost balance sheets. We saw it the other, although it was misconstrued slightly with the whole Lewis Orford thing and Aston Villa and John Duran, and I think what you'll see is the cream of the crop will rise. Where back in the day, 4 or 5 kids might come through, you'll get 1 or 2. And actually, it's quite interesting. If you listen to Lopetegui's press conference today, he was talking about not investing in the free transfer market going into this season, but utilising the academy to fill in the spaces. And that's how it's going to be. Caelan Casey is not going to be a West Ham Premier League player, like get 100 appearances. He's not. I've seen enough of him, but he'll be a good 4th choice. And I think the likes of George Earthy, Lewis Orford, Ollie Scholes, these guys will progress. Julie Robinson, he'll progress into the first team eventually. But you won't get as many as we used to. And it's because of detriment of the Premier League. PL2 is a waste of time. Reserve team football was the way to go. These kids are fantastic. George Earthy, Lewis Orford would piss on Thomas Souček from a technical perspective. But if you got them one-on-one together, Souček's got him for toast, because physically they're not, because they're playing against the same age group all the way, and then have to go into play in the squad, and they're not built for it. There's great players in the academy. Patrick Kelly, great player. Callum Marshall, great players. Michael Forbes, some really good players, but they just haven't got the next step up because there isn't that reserve team football, which was the sort of the Venn diagram before going to the first team. So now they are used as assets, and I think they will be going forward.
Real shame. It's that sad indictment of where football is at. If you're a young aspiring, unless you are like some superstar sort of player of the future, like you say, boys, you got.
I don't think
hope. It's a real shame.
Personally, personally, I don't think you'd get nowadays someone like Grady Diangana breaking into the West Ham first team.
Or Ben Johnson, perhaps.
Or Ben Johnson, exactly. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, another one that probably wouldn't have got an opportunity if he was coming through right here, right now. It's very sad, very sad. Got a question from GP, gents, if we want to sort of go into this particular one. So, and I love his avatar. I got to say, Zippy's a big hero of mine. Sloth, if we throw this one to you first of all to get your teeth into this, what is the minimum requirement for Lopetegui to do this season, or indeed is there a minimum?
I was worried you were going to ask me for a Zippy impression for a second, but
no, that's fine. I've got the Zippy impression covered. Sorry,
that's spot on actually. But I think it's for me the minimum is sort of getting back into Europe or a good cup run. I think balancing those two things out, you either need to look competitive in a cup and get to a decent place, or get back into Europe. And if we can't do that, I think it's a lot of money to have been spent, and we have a lot of talent available. It's not a case of a few years ago where we had kind of one outstanding player, maybe per position, per sort of midfield, attack or defense. We've got a great squad now, and I think you've got to look at top 10 as a minimum, but we have to be ambitious as a football club as well, and we need to be thinking about getting back into Europe. And loads of teams are going to be chasing that this year, but it's a big ask. I think the fans would be happy with a trophy. If we could win the FA Cup, that would be mine and my dad's dream. But I think it's sort of, that's now the big team party, isn't it? That's where you're looking at generally the sort of top four look and want to add to their trophy cabinet. But for me, the minimum, as I said, top half and a good cup run.
Have you got any thoughts on what the benchmark is for the new man?
Europe, minimum. Whether that is in the cup, whether that is in Europe, in the league, Europe is the minimum. And I'm not really concerned if it's conference, Euro. Obviously, I'd like it to be Champions League or Europe, in terms of preference. But we need to be in Europe, and again, it falls in line with money as well. Was talking, reading, did a thing today about the new PSR rules, that the shadow thing they're doing, and West Ham this year are going to be, or the books for last season are going to show a record profit, but that's going to be hit quite considerably this season coming because we're not in Europe, and it's the same. I mean, that's Lopetegui. That's his minimum. If he gets Europe in the first 2 years, he gets the third year added automatically in the contract. So. And as Sloth said, 9 players in, 13 first teamers out, including the loans all in. And I think, we've got a side now capable. We've got a squad rather than 11 and a few decent subs. And I think Europe is a minimum of what we need to do. And that's not sounding too Spursy, but it's true. I think, we've tasted it, and I think the fans deserve Europe every year.
Thank you for that, Russ. Adam, you boys over on the Dad's Our Job podcast. This is your opportunity to get stuck into this one. What say you? What's the minimum requirement? And it'd be interesting because obviously you're a West Ham fan, but obviously your two colleagues are not. So it'd be interesting to get their take on what they believe is a minimum requirement from the outside looking in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had this conversation on our first episode where we was doing the Premier League predictions, and I'm going to throw this over to the two Arsenal boys first, and then I'll finish it up on that part. So, Cal, you said
in my prediction, I have no doubt that West Ham will finish top 6. I think you've got the squad. I like the gaffer. I think you've bought fantastic players during the summer. I think behind them, I think you're going to play a different style of football once he's introduced all the players in. I have no doubt you'll finish top six. I think everything around the club, you've got to be excited. You've won a cup. I just think, this season's going to be the one where you push on again.
Yeah, for the record, I'm not paying them to say that, by the way. They're not just being nice to me because I'm doing a podcast with them, but this is genuine.
The thing is, what you've got to realise,
they're more West Ham than I am in terms of their upbringing and localisation. So they understand the demographic of the area of what it means being a West Ham fan in that area. So although they're Arsenal fans, but they're closet hammers, really. Not so much Rob. He's just giving me evils right now.
Old Boundary Road boys, Denby Road.
That's right. So we grew up. Me and Callum grew up at the bottom of Lonsdale Avenue. So West Ham was always something that we looked out for. Callum's gone bold with top six. I think I'm probably a little bit more conservative. I think top 10 would be the bare minimum, and trying to push for a European competition. Having said all of that, I am being conservative, but I also think West Ham were up there for winning the window this year. I think they had a really good window. I can't really remember West Ham backing a manager the way they did and really letting him build a team that he wanted. I think the improvements you've made in the defence are incredible. So getting Kilman, getting Aaron Wan-Bissaka really just shores up everything and is an upgrade, but then also gives you the backup that you need from the players that they've replaced. And then going forward, you've added some competition for Antonio. I just think that there's so much to be excited about at West Ham, European success. I wouldn't take money off Adam anyway because it's not real, but I'm saying that because that's what I think.
Cheers, guys. You've been going down my daughter's Monopoly set. I echo Russ really in terms of, I think the minimum is Europe for me. I think as a fan base, we've been so used to having back-to-back European campaigns and back-to-back quarter-final appearances in Europe and winning a trophy for the first time in my lifetime, and a trophy that people may poo-poo it, being a third-tier trophy. But to me, that moment that I had celebrating that outside Stratford with my old man is unforgettable. So I think the minimum expectation for the fan base is Europe. And I think it's relatively refreshing to have a manager that wants more for the club rather than just accepting West Ham for what they are, i.e. a yes man like David Moyes. So I think having Lopetegui and then getting in Steiden as well, I think it helps us be more of an ambitious club and aim for more. So if you aim high and you only fall a couple of places short, then you're no worse off than just accepting mediocrity. I think at least seventh, but that's based on a top six club winning the Carabao Cup. Again, this is a conversation we had on the previous episode where I would completely omit the European teams in the Carabao Cup to allow the other 14 clubs in the Premier League and the rest of the Football League to compete and have a more competitive tournament for the reward of getting in the Conference League. But that's for another debate. But for me, minimum, I'd say sixth, but seventh if a top six club win a trophy in March.
Thanks for that. So got a few more questions that have been thrown in that I've got starred here. This one's one that's caught my attention. It's another one from Michael. So he asked the question, do you ever see a wage cap coming in? Now, I know this is something that they have in rugby amongst other sports, a wage cap coming in. Do you think it would cause problems in terms of profit and sustainability rules, or do you think that actually it could be something that might help in some regards? We'll throw that over to you, Russ. Wage cap.
Well, I think we're sort of getting towards that point anyway in terms of the whole new PSR rules. They're looking. I know I've been harping on about it, but these new PSR rules, which are to do with 85, in line with what UEFA want. If you in terms of revenue and or income and and spent on wages and everything else. And I think you'll end up getting to a point where there would be a wage cap. The trouble is, I don't think you'll get a specific number. If that makes sense. I think there's too much money outside the Premier League as well. In terms of the Saudi Pro League, if we put a wage cap on 100 grand a week or whatever, and unless everyone else does it, you'll lose all your top talent because they'll go to the Saudi Pro League, or there'll be a ton of money pumped into MLS with obviously the World Cup coming up next, a couple of years' time. So I don't think it will ever work, but we're sort of doing that as already potentially with this sort of system. And obviously we had to abide by those rules when we were in Europe for the last 3 years in terms of having that sort of percentage of our wages and stuff towards the income levels. But I don't think it will ever work. I just don't think it'll ever work because unless it's a wide bag across the whole of all the FIFA, countries, never work. It will never work, unfortunately.
I was gonna. I don't know whether we've still got the lads from Dad's Our podcast, Dad's Our Job podcast, because I'm just looking at a bookshelf with the one that I'm drawing my attention to is the Mr. Men.
Mr. Men, yeah, Mr. Men.
Before you answer the question, that Mr. Men book. Come on, what's going on now?
This ain't mine. This is Callum's abode. This is Callum's studio.
Oh, you're blaming Callum. All right.
Yeah, I mean, he did have a book up there about Arsenal, and we quizzed him on it the other day, and he didn't even know what colour the original kit was. So,
I think I can see a copy of the pop-up Kama Sutra behind you as well. Is that right?
That's definitely mine. Yeah, that is mine. Yeah, I'll take complete ownership over that one.
I thought you might. Anyway, back onto the topic. Wage caps.
Yeah, wage caps. I'm against it personally because I think looking at the MLS in terms of them having a wage cap before and see the stagnated growth of their domestic league, and they only open that up to get David Beckham in, and then you see their progressive, the lads have put more finances into their clubs and development to get better players in. I mean, who knew David Beckham could own a club and get Lionel Messi in? If they had the wage cap, then they wouldn't have been able to do that ever. I mean, it's not like the NASL years ago when they could get Pele, Cruyff, and Bobby Moore and George Best and all those sorts of players in in the middle '80s because they were trying something new. But the wage cap, I think. You can't police it. You can't control it because if you cap the wages, then it just goes up elsewhere because then their commercial branding and their image rights all go up, and then it ends up costing the club anyway. So for me, I'm against the wage cap. What about you guys?
To be honest, I can't see it happen. I think we've missed that boat. I mean, unless you're going to wage cap it at £500,000 a week or something. I just can't see it being endorsed now or put in place because, like I say, that time's gone. In my opinion. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I agree. I think that ship has sailed. People are making far too much money to now be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll earn 50% less. And so, like Cannon was saying, you're going to have to cap it really high to get everyone under one umbrella. But then you're going to have to do that, as was said before, across every league in Europe, and it's just not feasible. It's not realistic, and people can make too much money elsewhere.
Yeah, and there's also this is full circle really when you think about it, because look at what's going to happen on Monday with Manchester City and the 115 charges from when Roberto Mancini was in charge, when he was capped his wages, but then he was paid offshore to balance the wage expectation. He was expected to be in that role, so we're just going to fall into that trap again. So then I think, people are rules are there to be broken. And I think teams, if they find a way to find a loophole, they will. And it will just, you can't control it. So I think the morale side of it, I get, but I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
Over to you, Sloth. What do you think about the idea about a wage cap in football?
I just think it's nonsense. Like I think look, it's we can all talk about how footballers are paid too much and all that kind of thing, but at the end of the day, it completely nullifies the point that they do have to pay tax on it. You know, whether or not there is some sort of tax avoidance Jimmy Carr-esque system in place that, you know, being paid into a separate bank account or something like that. That's not my remit, and it's not for me to comment on. But I think at the end of the day, this is money that these people have earned, whether you agree with it or not, and they have a right because of the money involved in football. You know, if you took away a wage cap and you're still getting all this TV money in, where's that money going? It's going into the owner's pocket, and it's a very tricky one. If you put a wage cap on the Premier League, then La Liga is just going to go, right, what we're going to do now is we're going to change the way that we can have our finances, and maybe Real Madrid and Barcelona are going to get a little bit more of the money that we get from TV rights, and we can give that to them, and that can kind of offset it for PSR. You know, Chelsea could sell themselves another hotel, but it's a strange way to kind of justify this. I think it's wrong that you're earning that much money. And I don't agree with a wage cap in general. And PSR, I think, is almost an excuse for the Premier League to kind of pick and choose their battles. And they can point at one person and go, you're doing the wrong thing and you're paying too much money to your players, even though this side might be trying to progress, and they may have finished, like Newcastle, finished in the Champions League spots. But suddenly this season, they weren't allowed to build on that. They weren't allowed to spend in the market. They had to sell, and they lost a really promising youngster because of it. And yet you have a club like Chelsea who can sell themselves a hotel and get away with it. They can sell all these youth players, but sign, like, you know, buses of players. And it seems to not be getting any ramification for them. So it's a tricky one. I think PSR and these systems were put in place with good intentions, and I just think they're being completely misapplied. But it's a wage cap of sorts to stop clubs going beyond their means, but it's not a wage cap in the sense that it stops someone earning, say,
is that your internet or is that my internet dicking around? Oh dear.
Oh no. What happened there?
It all froze. It did that earlier, didn't it, on the network?
Yeah, can you imagine if you're in a dressing room and someone's on 700 grand a week and you're on 200 grand a week for exactly the same job, and you're going, why is he paid so much? You're getting your agent on the phone going, I want to sit down and talk to someone. What's going on? So I think at the end of the day, a wage cap is never going to happen. It's kind of like we spoke before about relegation being cancelled. I just think it's a nothing argument, and the legal ramifications of it, I think, are going to be huge if it were to ever be put in place.
Thank you for that, Sloth. We got a question, and apologies we didn't get round to referencing this. So because he's got a second bite, I'm assuming it's a he, could be a she, don't know. They, let's go with they. Q7070 asked the question, what's your view on the new banner for the Bobby Moore stand? Do you think it's a good idea? So we'll fire this over to the podcast, chaps. Have you heard about this? You know what this is all about?
Yeah. Bless them. That's all I can say on that. They gave it a good go. It's not the tifos we expected from the Bundesliga. It's not the tifos we expected during our European campaign. If people remember the Frankfurt away, where they were lighting up firecrackers and flags and things like that, but I think they could do a bit better in terms of the size of the flag being dwarfed by the size of the stand. Effectively, you might as well just put a postage stamp on a letter. That's how impactful it was. I'm all for tifos and flags, and as long as it encourages the atmosphere. I mean, we could look to the two guys that are in this room here in terms of the changing of the atmosphere at the Emirates. Guys, what's your thoughts on flags and tifos in the stands? I mean, it's quite famous, isn't it, in terms of the Emirates behind one of the stands. You've got some of the guys with the massive Arsenal flags, and I think those flags were even used in, hate to say it, Declan Rice announcement promo. But let's not beat around the bush on it. It's a sign of the club, isn't it, in terms of the colours and the sort of the tribal nature behind it. So,
yeah, I mean, they are all well and good, but when you're there and you're in the game, it's the atmosphere with the people next to you and around you, isn't it? That's kind of like the feeling that I get when I'm there. I'm embracing what's going on, and we're singing the songs "North London Forever" for us. Or when Kai Havertz scores again, we're singing Waka Waka. Like, it's in the moment. I'm not really an aesthetics person as much. So that's my personal preference. All of the other stuff is nice to look at, but what I want to see is the game, and I want to enjoy it with other fans who are loving it as much as I am. So decoration's great, but I'm there for the environment, Yeah.
Cal?
I don't know. I think as it's part to play, I think, like when they wear the scarves or they wave the scarves in the air, you've seen that quite a lot at the Emirates recently. Obviously, I know it's more of a Spanish thing, but I think it does bring something. A lot. I like it when you sort of look around the stadium and they got fans from all over the country, or they're representing a particular area. I think Arsenal have had a big movement in that area. I think Arteta's got a massive bit to play with that. Also, I think it's getting younger blokes into the, it's all the heritage of the club, innit? And it's all representing and showing your colours. And I quite like it, to be honest with you. But I do think it has a part to play. But it's got to be something that you embrace. It can't be just like sort of one flag at the back of the stadium. It's got to be, if you look at the Emirates now, they're just everywhere. And I think it's part of the makeup now. And I think if West Ham are going to do it, they've got to bring that in as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the new fans that are coming in, they're expecting a FC24 or FC25 atmosphere before a game. It just doesn't happen, does it? Nobody's going to put a massive piece of artwork in the Bobby Moore stand of Carlos Tevez doing that when he scores, like they do on the computer game. But I think I appreciate the sentiment and the them trying their best at it, but I think you just got to stick to what's right and what represents the club in the right. Won't necessarily have a flag in their stands, but they've inherited the Poznan celebration, so that in itself is a bit of a display of the fans, and you don't need a flag for that. So I think I'd encourage it, but I wouldn't be a massive fan of it, if I'm completely honest.
Thanks, chaps. Sloth, your take on it? Do you aware of this new banner that's referenced by Hughes 7070?
Yeah, look, I think if you're into that kind of thing, that's great. I always kind of look at a banner and think I'd hate to be the one sat underneath that, especially when they're if they're going across the big yellow wall or something in Dortmund, and they got massive banner, and you think someone's paid money to be under that. I wonder what their view's like. But I think it's something that, to me, I find the atmosphere at English football games is something that's really unique, and it's something that separates us from, say, Germany, Poland, France, when they have this sort of ultras culture, and they may well get people at the front with a megaphone and get flares and everyone's jumping in unison. But I used to go with my granddad when he was alive, and I think my granddad's not going to be jumping, like he's not going to be there with a flare, and it's really tricky. Away days are great, and that's kind of a fantastic group of people to try and get that atmosphere going with, because I think they'll take to it more. But when you're not allowed things like flares, when you're not allowed even pints, and I'm probably not the best person to talk about that either, because I hate this whole culture of throwing a pint up in the air. And I think if I'm at the football and I'm sat in my old West Ham top, or I'm just sat in clothes that I want to stay warm in, and I have to stink a beer on the way home, I'm not going to be very happy unless we've won. But even then, 45 minutes after, I'm going to be sat on the train going, I stink. Like it's a tricky one. And I think while flags and things are definitely something that I want to see more of, like I want to see more of a sort of atmosphere enhancements at grounds, and whether that's with pyrotechnics before the game, whatever the club try and do, I think there's always something that fans can do on top of that. And look, the Poznan's a great example, and certain people can partake in that. But the great thing about English football is that every club is different and every club has their own thing. So it's finding what works for us. And if we can find something that unites the fan base, creates noise and an atmosphere, amazing. I'm sure everyone would get behind it. But it's about what is that? Because a flag doesn't really generate atmosphere, does it? It's there. So how do you push it forward, and how do you start to take the atmosphere or enhance the atmosphere at the club?
Thank you, Sloth. And the final word we're going to give to the main man, Russ, the new banner for the Bobby Moore stand. What's your views? You're on mute as well.
There we go. I'm all for it. I think it's great that people want to do stuff like that. I'm in agreement with Sloth. I think it's for me. It's English football is unique, and I think if anything, the last 3 years with European football has shown us how unique non-English crowds are. As you said, the banners. We had the bloody water bottle, didn't we? From wherever the Polish side through it. We have ultras. You have a bloke at the front shouting in a megaphone. You have the drums. I remember. I think it was Viborg. It was like the most amazing crowd atmosphere. We've had some great nights at London Stadium. It's not Upton Park. We know it's not Upton Park. I've had some shit nights at Upton Park. I think we have rose tinted glasses about that. We've had some crap nights at Upton Park. The fans will always turn up. And in terms of one thing that will unite the fans and get the atmosphere going, it's what's on the park. It's what's on the pitch. If the team's playing good football, we're winning games, we're scoring goals, fans will start cheering, fans will start singing. And having a tifo, having a flag, it's nice dressing. I just don't think it's the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is what's on the pitch. I know I've in my box at the top. When it's a really big game, some of the European nights, some of the bigger Premier League games, you can feel that box sway, and which is probably not good for the foundations, but you can feel it, and you can feel it. You get the hairs on the back of on your arm stand up, and there's an area of anticipation. And if the team are playing well, then fans are ready for the next game. Fans can't wait to go to the next game. I think a lot of fans over the last 3 years were dreading going back to the next game. And that's not the case. We want fans to be excited. And a flag, nice, tifo, good idea. Newcastle do it. They do it fan-led. They buy it themselves. They have a group every other couple of weeks. I think I saw an article or saw a video about that. But I just think if the players are playing on the pitch, and we're playing good football, and we're scoring goals and winning games, the atmosphere goes hand in hand. Simple, and it's dressing. We're not. It's quite a European thing, isn't it? Getting the tifos out, getting the flags out, and some clubs have adopted it. We haven't really adopted it as much. We adopted the big European games. We did the light shows, the pyrotechnics. I love all that. We get Tony Perry on. Love that. Makes my job a lot easier that week. But it ain't gonna, by putting a tifo out, ain't gonna improve the atmosphere if what we get on the pitch is crap. It ain't. It might raise it 5% at kickoff, but then as soon as it kicks off, and when we play, 20% possession, people are going to be bored and fuck off. It's simple.
Yeah. No, you make some very good points there, Russ, and I'd like to thank all of you guys for joining us. I think we've well, I need my beauty sleep, quite frankly. So yeah, I need quite a lot of it. But before we do disappear, Howard, I just want to sort of like put that back up and say that's very kind of you. But I haven't been to court. I promise you, I absolutely haven't been to court today. But I appreciate your donation nonetheless. Thank you very much. You're very kind. There was no need for that, but thank you very much. Chaps, as I say, thank you very much for joining us. Really do appreciate you getting involved on this, and especially I got to say, especially Russ, because without him, I wouldn't have been able to ponce his very fine YouTube channel for 60 minutes. So appreciate that. And guys that are watching, please don't forget to like, comment on, and share the stream to your social media platforms. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, especially if you are new around here. Hit the bell icon for alerts of new content. All these things take you a couple of seconds to implement. They're free of charge to you, and they help grow the channel into something bigger and better down the track. And we always thank you very much indeed for your support in this matter. Talking of support, please don't forget to give your support to the Iron Supporting Food Banks charity. We will see you next time. Come on, you Irons.
Iron Supporting Food Banks collects food and cash donations for needy families in Newham Borough and beyond. Please consider making a donation via their Just Giving page, the link for which you will find in the description section of this stream. Come on, you Irons.